Shocking predictions. Did Baba Vanga foresee America's fate? What if someone could see the future, not in dreams but in visions? Throughout history, a few rare individuals have claimed to peer beyond the veil of time, foreseeing events that would shake the world. Among them, Baba Vanga stands as a figure of mystery and awe. Born in a small village in Bulgaria, she lost her sight at a young age, yet she gained something far more extraordinary, an ability that defied logic and reason. With each prediction, she sent shockwaves through history, foretelling events long before they unfolded. But did she foresee the fate of America? Could her visions hold clues about the future of one of the most powerful nations on earth? Join us on the journey of wisdom as we unravel the chilling prophecies of Baba Vanga and their shocking implications for the world today. 1. Childhood tragedy and the birth of a seer. Baba Vanga's life is a testament to the idea that sometimes great suffering gives birth to extraordinary gifts. As the Buddha once said, endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is to the one who endures that the final victory comes. Born on January 31, 1911, in the small, impoverished village of Strumica, Bulgaria, Baba Vanga entered a world where struggle was an everyday reality. But no one could have predicted that her fate would be shaped not by the ordinary trials of life, but by a force far beyond human control. As a child, she was caught in a violent storm, a moment that would change the course of history. Swept away by powerful winds, she was later found barely alive, her body battered, and most tragically, her eyes severely damaged. The young girl who once saw the world with innocent eyes would never see it again in the way she had before. But within this tragedy, something else was unfolding, something that defied all logic and scientific explanation. In the darkness that followed, another kind of sight began to awaken. At first it was subtle, feelings, sensations, an unexplainable awareness of things that had not yet happened. Then it grew sharper. She started to see glimpses of the past and visions of the future. The world she had physically lost was replaced by a new perception, one that reached beyond the limitations of time. People began to notice her uncanny ability to predict events with startling accuracy. It wasn't long before visitors from all walks of life sought her guidance. Peasants, leaders, and even powerful politicians, all desperate to hear what the blind seer had to say about their fate. There are only two mistakes one can make along the road to truth: not going all the way and not starting. These words from the Buddha resonate deeply with Baba Vanga's story, for she did not resist the path she was given. Instead, she embraced it, despite the burden it placed upon her. Life often takes away what we hold dear: our health, our plans, our sense of certainty. Yet, just like Baba Vanga, what we lose can sometimes lead to a deeper understanding. In modern times, we are overwhelmed with uncertainty about our careers, relationships, and the world's future. Baba Vanga's journey teaches us that even in darkness, there is another kind of vision waiting to be found. Perhaps her story is not just about prophecy, but about resilience, the ability to turn adversity into something greater. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If we open our minds, life itself will teach us everything we need to know. So, as we explore her shocking predictions, let us also reflect on our own lives, on the hidden strengths we have yet to uncover. What will we see when we finally stop looking with our eyes and start seeing with our hearts? 2. the prophetic gift and mysterious voices. Baba Vanga's prophetic gift remains one of the greatest mysteries of modern times. How could a blind woman from a small Bulgarian village foresee events that would shape the world? She did not study books or analyze history, yet her visions came with an eerie accuracy that defied explanation. She once described her experiences as glimpses of time itself, fragments of the past, present and future, interwoven like a grand tapestry, revealing truths hidden from ordinary sight. But these insights did not come from reasoning or logic. They arrived as whispers from unseen forces, voices beyond the physical world. What were these voices? Were they echoes of fate, messages from a divine realm, or something yet to be understood? Some of her predictions were so vivid and terrifying that they sent chills down the spines of those who listened. Others were mysterious, needing careful interpretation, only becoming clear as time unfolded. This reminds me of an old Buddhist story. Once, a wise monk was meditating by a river when a young man approached him, desperate for guidance. "Master," the man asked, "how can I see what lies ahead?" The monk picked up a handful of water and let it slip through his fingers. "The future is like this river," he said. "It flows, but you cannot grasp it. You can only observe and understand its direction." Like Baba Vanga, the monk did not claim control over time, only an awareness of its currents. Baba Vanga's life and visions teach us something profound, not just about prophecy, but about awareness. While we may never hear voices from the beyond, we all have intuition, the ability to sense when something is right or wrong, to see beyond the surface of things. Perhaps the real lesson is that the future is not given to us in absolute terms, but rather as possibilities shaped by our choices, actions, and understanding. If her predictions were glimpses of what could be, rather than what must be, then we must ask ourselves, what future are we creating right now? As the Buddha said, what we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday, and our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. 3. Beyond time and space, a universal connection. Baba Vanga was not just a blind mystic from Bulgaria. To many, she was a bridge between worlds, between the past, the future, and realms beyond human perception. Her visions were not simply predictions, they carried a depth that baffled even the most skeptical minds. Some believed she had the ability to communicate with spirits, whispering voices of those long gone, while others claimed she had tapped into an ancient reservoir of wisdom, hearing echoes from civilizations that existed long before recorded history. But among all her claims, one stood out as the most shocking: her belief that Earth is not alone. She insisted that extraterrestrial beings had been visiting us for centuries, influencing human events in ways we have yet to fully understand. Could it be that her extraordinary foresight was not just intuition, but knowledge granted by forces beyond our world? And if so, what does that mean for our place in the universe? Throughout history, there have been countless stories of prophets, seers, and enlightened beings who spoke of realities hidden from ordinary sight. Even the Buddha, when asked about the existence of life beyond this world, remained silent, not in denial, but as an invitation for people to seek the truth on their own. Do not believe anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions because they've been handed down for generations. But after observation and analysis, when you find that something agrees with reason and benefits all, accept it and live by it. These words challenge us to think critically, to explore without fear, and to remain open to possibilities beyond our understanding. So what do we make of Baba Vanga's boldest claims? Could her insights be dismissed as superstition, or was she tapping into a knowledge that modern science has yet to comprehend? Even today, astrophysicists and astronomers dedicate their lives to searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth, scanning the vastness of space for a signal, a whisper, a trace of something greater than ourselves. But what if the answers we seek are not out there, but have been here all along? Ancient civilizations, from the Mayans to the Egyptians, left behind symbols, texts, and artifacts that hint at encounters with beings beyond our world. There's a powerful lesson hidden in Baba Vanga's story, not just about prophecy, but about perspective. We live in a time where knowledge is at our fingertips, yet we often close our minds to ideas that challenge what we think we know. But true wisdom is not about having all the answers. It is about asking better questions. What if the universe is more connected than we believe? What if time is not linear, but a web of possibilities waiting to be understood? What if the very future we seek to predict is in some way already influencing us? Perhaps Baba Vanga wasn't just foreseeing events. Perhaps she was reminding us that reality is far more mysterious than we dare to imagine. Baba Vanga's visions challenge everything we think we know about reality. Were her predictions just intuition, or was she tapping into something far greater? Do you believe we are alone in the universe, or have we been visited before? Comment below. We are alone, or we are not alone. Let's see what everyone thinks. 4. Famous predictions and their impact. Baba Vanga's prophecies were never simple statements. They were riddles wrapped in mystery, often symbolic, leaving room for interpretation. She did not lay out a clear roadmap of the future, but instead spoke in cryptic messages that only revealed their true meaning when events unfolded. One of her most chilling predictions remains a subject of intense debate. The twin brothers of America will fall. Many believe this was a forewarning of the tragic events of September 11, 2001, when the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center collapsed in an attack that shook the world. The eerie details surrounding her prophecy don't stop there. She reportedly spoke of iron birds bringing destruction, an image that many interpret as a reference to the hijacked airplanes used in the attack. Even more unsettling was her mention of Busher, a word that some believe hinted at then-President George W. Bush, who was in office during this pivotal moment in American history. This leads us to a bigger question. If predictions are often veiled in symbolism, how do we separate coincidence from true foresight? The Buddha once said, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Truth has a way of emerging, whether through science, history, or events that force us to rethink our understanding of reality. Baba Vanga's predictions remind us that the future is not always as uncertain as we think. Patterns exist, warnings arise, and sometimes those who are attuned to forces beyond the physical world can perceive shifts before they happen. In life, we are constantly seeking answers, whether it's predicting economic downturns, political shifts, or technological advancements. Yet, much like Baba Vanga's prophecies, the signs are often there before disaster strikes. How often do we ignore warnings in our own lives, dismissing gut feelings or red flags, only to realize later that we should have paid attention? The lesson here is not just about prophecy, but about awareness. If history teaches us anything, It's that preparation and perception are key to survival. Baba Vanga's words, whether mystical or metaphorical, serve as a reminder that the world is always changing, and sometimes the answers are already in front of us. We just need to learn how to read them. So, the real question isn't whether she predicted the fate of America, but whether we, as individuals and as a society, are truly listening to the messages the world is giving us. 5. The prediction of America's first black president. Baba Vanga's predictions often seemed impossible until they became reality. One of her most astonishing prophecies was about the leadership of the United States. She once stated that the 44th President of the United States would be a black man, a claim that, at the time, seemed improbable given the long history of racial divisions in the country. Yet in 2008, Barack Obama was elected as the first African-American president, proving that her words were not just speculation, but a chilling foresight into history in the making. But her prophecy did not end with his election. She also warned that his presidency would be marked by severe economic struggles, a statement that eerily aligned with the 2008 global financial crisis, one of the most devastating economic collapses in modern history. Millions of people lost jobs, homes, and financial security, echoing her warning that great challenges would come alongside this historic leadership. This makes us question how much of the future is already written and how much is shaped by our actions. The Buddha once said, "The trouble is, you think you have time." This wisdom reminds us that while predictions may hint at the future, it is ultimately our choices that define what happens next. Many economic experts saw warning signs before the financial collapse, yet few acted in time. In our own lives, how often do we overlook red flags, ignoring what's right in front of us until disaster strikes? Baba Vanga's words were not just about political leaders or economies. They remind us of the patterns in life, how history repeats itself when we fail to learn from it. Baba Vanga's predictions challenge us to be more aware, to look at the signs, and to prepare for what's ahead. Whether or not she had supernatural abilities, her warnings often reflected deeper truths about human nature and society. So as we reflect on her prophecy of America's first black president and the financial turmoil that followed, we should ask ourselves, are we learning from the past, or are we waiting for history to repeat itself? What changes do we need to make now, before the next storm arrives? 6. The turbulent presidency of Donald Trump. Baba Vanga's predictions have always been wrapped in mystery, often vague yet strikingly accurate when viewed in hindsight. One of her most unsettling prophecies pointed to the 45th President of the United States, whom she claimed would face unprecedented turmoil during his time in office. When Donald Trump took the presidency in 2017, few could have predicted the sheer magnitude of chaos that would unfold. Yet, as history played out, her words seemed to take on a haunting significance. Under his leadership, the world witnessed one of the most catastrophic global health crises in modern history, the COVID-19 pandemic. The virus swept across nations, claiming millions of lives, devastating economies, and leaving behind scars that may take decades to heal. The US economy, once stable, took a severe hit, with businesses closing, unemployment skyrocketing, and a deep sense of uncertainty gripping the nation. But this was just one layer of the storm that unfolded. On the international stage, Trump's presidency was marked by tensions that sent ripples across the global economy. His trade war with China intensified economic instability, disrupting industries, causing price hikes, and shaking financial markets. Was this the turmoil Baba Vanga foresaw? An era where economic battles were no longer fought with weapons but through tariffs, sanctions, and shifting alliances? Then came one of the most defining moments of his presidency: deepening social unrest. In 2020, the death of George Floyd sparked nationwide protests, igniting long-standing racial and political divisions in the country. Streets filled with anger, demands for justice echoed through cities, and the cracks in America's unity became more evident than ever. It was not just a political crisis, but a moral one that forced a nation to confront its past and its future. But this raises an important question. Did Baba Vanga truly foresee these struggles, or do we find meaning in her words only after events unfold? This is the mystery of prophecy. It exists in a space between belief and interpretation, between fate and free will. While prophecies may offer glimpses into what lies ahead, what truly matters is how we respond to the present. If history teaches us anything, it is that chaos is not just destruction, it is transformation. From pandemics to political strife, every crisis presents an opportunity to rebuild, to learn, and to redefine the path forward. 7. The rise of Russia in global power. Baba Vanga's prophecies often felt like riddles waiting for history to unfold before their meanings became clear. One of her most intriguing predictions revolved around Russia's rising power, foreseeing a time when the nation would stand at the center of global affairs. She spoke cryptically of Vladimir's glory, a phrase that many now associate with Russian President Vladimir Putin, whose leadership has been instrumental in reshaping Russia's position in the world. Whether one views him as a visionary leader or a force of disruption, there is no denying that Russia has expanded its influence in ways that were once thought impossible. From its deepening involvement in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, to its tense confrontations with Western powers, Russia has increasingly positioned itself as a counterbalance to the dominance of the United States and NATO. But is this resurgence part of a natural geopolitical shift, or is there something greater at play, something that Baba Vanga may have foreseen decades ago? Her predictions gain even more weight when looking at Russia's political and military maneuvers in recent years. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has reignited Cold War-era tensions, pushing global powers into a delicate and dangerous balancing act. Accusations of cyber warfare, election interference, and hybrid military tactics have only fueled the idea that Russia is not just rebuilding its empire, but actively reshaping the world order. Some see these moves as strategic genius, while others view them as destabilizing actions that could lead to a larger global crisis. But Baba Vanga's vision of Russia's role extended beyond politics and warfare. She believed that Russia would not only rise in power, but also become a spiritual center for the world. In an age of materialism and global uncertainty, she predicted a return to Orthodox Christianity and a renewed sense of spiritual leadership that would define the country's role in the future. The Buddha once said, "Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again." Perhaps this prophecy reminds us that power is never truly fixed. It shifts, evolves, and transforms over time. The world has seen countless empires rise and fall, from Rome to Britain to the Soviet Union, and now we may be witnessing yet another turning point in history. In a world where geopolitical shifts can impact economies, security, and even daily life, Are we paying attention to the bigger picture? Too often, people view global events as distant, separate from their own personal realities. But history shows us that every major shift eventually reaches our doorstep. If Baba Vanga was right about Russia's rise, what other global transformations might be happening right now that we have yet to recognize? More importantly, how do we prepare for an uncertain future in a world that is constantly changing? Perhaps the greatest lesson here is not about which country gains power, but about the impermanence of power itself, and the wisdom in understanding that nothing, no leader and no nation, remains at the top forever. 8. The foretold collapse of Europe. Baba Vanga's prophecies have always carried a sense of mystery, often revealing themselves in ways that only make sense after history unfolds. One of her most unsettling predictions pointed to the collapse of Europe, a claim that seemed unthinkable in the modern era. Yet, in 2016, the Brexit referendum sent shockwaves through the European Union, marking the first major fracture in the once unbreakable alliance. The United Kingdom's decision to leave the EU was more than just a political shift. It was a sign of deeper unrest, a growing divide between those who embraced unity and those who sought independence. But was this just the beginning? In the years that followed, Europe faced a series of crises that tested its stability. Waves of migration, the rise of nationalist movements, and an economic landscape struggling to recover from multiple shocks. Her prophecy spoke not just of political change, but of a larger transformation, a shift in identity, in power, and in the very fabric of what holds nations together. The migration crisis brought deep divisions, with countries struggling to balance humanitarian needs against political pressures. The rise of nationalism saw leaders promoting isolationism, rejecting the idea of a unified Europe. Economic struggles, from debt crises in Greece to energy dependencies on foreign powers, left many wondering if the EU was as strong as it once appeared. But the biggest question remains: is this a temporary phase, or is Europe truly on a path toward dissolution? The Buddha once said, "Everything changes, nothing remains without change." Empires rise and fall, alliances form and break, and history has shown us that no structure, no matter how strong, is immune to transformation. The European Union, once seen as the great symbol of unity after the world wars, now faces an uncertain future, one that could redefine global politics for generations. The lesson here is not just about Europe, it's about all of us. We live in a world where change is the only constant, yet we resist it, fearing the unknown. But history teaches us that resistance to change leads to collapse, while adaptation leads to survival. If Baba Vanga was right about the fractures in Europe, what else might we be ignoring in our own lives? Are we clinging to old systems, beliefs, or ways of thinking that no longer serve us? Just like nations, individuals must evolve to thrive. So the real question is not just whether Europe will break apart, but whether we are ready for the inevitable shifts that life brings. Are we prepared to embrace change, or will we hold on until everything spills over? 9. The Kursk submarine disaster. Baba Vanga's prophecies have always carried an unsettling sense of mystery, often cryptic, yet eerily accurate when events come to pass. One of her most haunting predictions dates back to the 1980s, when she reportedly warned, "A large vessel will sink and the world will weep." At the time, it was an ambiguous statement, one that people likely brushed aside as too vague to be meaningful. But 20 years later, in August 2000, her words took on a chilling reality when the Russian nuclear submarine Kursk met its tragic fate beneath the Barents Sea. In a disaster that shocked the world, all 118 sailors on board lost their lives after a catastrophic explosion sealed their fate deep underwater. The world did indeed weep as the incident unfolded, not just for the loss of life, but for the grim reality of how it was handled. The Kursk sinking was not merely an accident. It became a symbol of tragedy, political failure, and the limits of human control over nature's unforgiving forces. The eerie accuracy of her statement raises profound questions. Was Baba Vanga simply attuned to patterns of human tragedy, able to sense the cycles of disaster and loss that have repeated throughout history? Or was there something more? An ability to see beyond time as we know it? Some argue that all great disasters follow a predictable path. Warnings are often ignored, mistakes are made, and in the end, the weight of these failures leads to catastrophe. But does that mean we are doomed to repeat the same mistakes, unable to change the course of fate? The Buddha once said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." While tragic events will always occur, our response to them, how we learn, how we prepare, how we act in the face of crisis, is what defines us. This reminds me of an old Buddhist story about a farmer who lost his horse. His neighbors pitied him, saying it was a terrible misfortune, but the wise farmer simply said, "Maybe." Days later, the horse returned with several wild horses, and the neighbors rejoiced at his newfound luck. Again, the farmer said, "Maybe." Soon after, his son tried to ride one of the wild horses, fell and broke his leg. The neighbors were quick to call it a disaster, but again the farmer replied, "Maybe." Not long after, soldiers arrived to draft young men for war, but because the farmer's son was injured, he was spared. What seems like a disaster in the moment may reveal hidden meanings in time. Could it be that Baba Vanga's warnings, like the farmer's wisdom, remind us that events are interconnected, that even in the face of tragedy we must not rush to despair, but instead seek understanding? The Kursk disaster, beyond its immediate horror, serves as a lesson in preparedness, responsibility, and the fragility of human systems. Many have speculated that, had the Russian government acted sooner, more lives might have been saved. In our own lives, how often do we ignore the early warnings, whether in relationships, careers, or personal well-being, only to face consequences that could have been avoided? Baba Vanga's prediction forces us to ask, are we listening to the warnings around us, or are we dismissing them until it's too late? If history is a mirror reflecting our past mistakes, then perhaps the real power of prophecy is not in knowing the future, but in using that knowledge to change the present. The world may weep for what is lost, but wisdom lies in ensuring we do not let the same fate repeat itself. 10. Climate change and a troubled planet. Baba Vanga's prophecies have always carried a sense of unease, but few predictions feel as urgent and relevant today as her warning about a shift in Earth's orbit in 2024. While many dismiss such claims as mere superstition, the reality of climate change and extreme weather events is impossible to ignore. We are already witnessing hurricanes that are more violent, droughts that last longer, and wildfires that destroy entire regions in ways we once thought unimaginable. Scientists may not confirm an orbital shift, but they do confirm that human activity has drastically altered the planet's climate, pushing us into a dangerous cycle of environmental disasters. Throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen based on their ability to live in harmony with nature. The ancient Mayans, the once mighty Mesopotamians, even the Roman Empire, all suffered devastating consequences when their environments could no longer sustain them. Baba Vanga's warning reminds us of this fragile balance, urging us to recognize the signs before it's too late. The Buddha once said, "Just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. In the same way, we cannot live without a habitable planet." Yet we continue to treat nature as something we can control and exploit, rather than as something we must respect and nurture. Every extreme weather event, every rising temperature, every vanishing species is a signal, a warning that we are pushing our world to the brink. This reminds me of a Buddhist parable about a man who ignored a growing leak in his roof. At first it was just a few drops, easily dismissed. Then the rain became heavier and the leaks worsened, but he still did nothing, believing he had time. Then came the storm, and his entire home collapsed around him. The lesson is clear. Small problems ignored today become catastrophic disasters tomorrow. Isn't that exactly what we're seeing with climate change? Scientists have warned us for decades, yet governments and industries have continued to act as if the crisis is something distant. Baba Vanga's prophecy is not just about environmental doom. It's about human responsibility. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we are not separate from nature, we are part of it. We cannot afford to live in denial, hoping that technology or future generations will solve the problems we refuse to face today. The world is at a crossroads, and our choices will determine whether we reverse the damage or accelerate our own downfall. The good news? Change is still possible. Renewable energy, sustainable living, conservation efforts, these are not just idealistic dreams, but necessary actions if we want to avoid the worst outcomes. 11. The Quantum Age and AI Domination. Baba Vanga's visions of the future have always been shrouded in mystery, but one of her most intriguing prophecies speaks to something that is unfolding before our eyes: the rise of artificial intelligence, AI, and the dawn of the quantum age. She reportedly predicted that by 2024, breakthroughs in quantum computing would accelerate technological advancements in ways that we can barely comprehend. This is not just another step in human progress. It represents a seismic shift in how intelligence, decision-making, and even power itself will function in the world. Today, we are already witnessing the rapid evolution of AI, machines that can learn, reason, and even surpass human intelligence in certain fields. With self-learning systems and decision-making algorithms becoming more sophisticated, the question is no longer if AI will dominate, but how it will shape the world we live in. Technology has always been a double-edged sword. Every great invention has brought both progress and peril. AI has the power to revolutionize industries, cure diseases, and solve problems faster than we ever could. But it also has a dark side, one that Baba Vanga may have foreseen. As AI becomes more advanced, the potential for misuse in cyber warfare grows. Governments and corporations now rely on AI-driven systems for security, finance, and national defense. But what happens if these systems are hijacked? What happens when AI begins making decisions without human intervention? There is already fear that artificial intelligence could be weaponized. used to manipulate information, hack into critical infrastructures, and even wage digital wars that we are not prepared to fight. The Buddha once said, "Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame." But can the same be said for AI? Unlike humans, AI does not have wisdom, ethics, or a moral compass. It simply learns from data and acts based on patterns. What happens when AI's calculations no longer align with human values? Could we be heading toward a future where machines make decisions that we cannot reverse? Baba Vanga's prophecy forces us to ask, are we prepared for what comes next? We often rush toward innovation without fully considering the consequences, but history has shown that power without control leads to destruction. AI is neither good nor evil. It is a tool, one that will shape the future based on how we choose to use it. The responsibility falls on us to create safeguards, to ensure that ethics and human values remain at the core of AI development. The real danger is not artificial intelligence itself, but our blind trust in it, our failure to set boundaries, and our assumption that we will always be in control. 12. The end of the oil era. Baba Vanga's predictions have often pointed toward events that seemed impossible at the time, but later became undeniable realities. One of her most intriguing forecasts was about the decline of fossil fuels and the dawn of a new energy revolution, a shift that is already unfolding before our eyes. She predicted that solar, wind, and hydrogen energy would eventually replace oil as the world's primary sources of power, fundamentally reshaping economies, industries, and even global power structures. At first, this may have seemed far-fetched, given how deeply the world has relied on oil for over a century. Yet today, we see governments, corporations, and innovators racing toward renewable energy solutions, driven not only by environmental concerns, but also by the undeniable reality that fossil fuel reserves are finite. But major transitions don't come without consequences. The shift away from oil is not just about science or sustainability, it's about power, politics, and survival. Nations that have built their wealth and influence on oil are now facing an uncertain future. Countries that once dominated the global stage because of their energy resources are now being forced to adapt or face economic decline. We are already seeing the tensions this creates: trade wars, fluctuating oil prices, and geopolitical struggles between nations that are desperate to maintain control over the remaining reserves. The rise of solar, wind, and hydrogen energy isn't just a technological breakthrough. It's a global power shift, one that will redefine alliances, economies, and even conflicts. The Buddha once said, "Nothing is permanent. Everything is subject to change. Being is always becoming." This reminds us that those who fail to evolve are the ones who suffer the most. The oil industry, once seemingly unshakable, is now standing at a crossroads. Baba Vanga's prophecy forces us to confront a truth we often avoid. Change is coming whether we are ready or not. The decline of oil isn't just a technological shift, it's a test of our ability to adapt, innovate, and create a new way forward. And like all great changes in history, it will bring both winners and losers. The greatest question remains: are we bound by destiny, or do we have the power to shape our own future? Baba Vanga's legacy is more than just a collection of prophecies. It is a timeless mystery that challenges us to reflect on the path ahead. Her predictions may evoke both fear and hope, But perhaps the real message is this: the future is not set in stone. It is shaped by the choices we make today. If we truly hold the pen to our own destiny, then what must we do to create a better world? Thank you for joining us on the journey of wisdom. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. And make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos as we continue exploring the mysteries of history, fate, and the power of human free will. Until next time, stay curious, stay wise, and keep questioning the world around you.